had been working on what is now Spaceport America since 1991. And having, at that time, only running the one NASA program, the New Mexico Space Grant Consortium, and that is a NASA administered program. I went to a number of NASA conferences, and I was just completely unschooled in what is now termed commercial space and defined by the 2010 Space Act. Back then, there was enough dialogue in the marketplace already at the conferences that I went to where people were dissatisfied in many ways with the direction of the space industry from multiple standpoints, not just technical standpoints, but in terms of bureaucracy, in terms of the way that their workday went. People were not as involved in the end-to-end of the product or the program they were working on. They were compartmentalized, sometimes moved out of an area that they loved into an area where they had no interest at all. And somebody made that decision without any input from them. They didn't like that the space program became like working possibly for the post office or something where, wait a second, I didn't want to be doing that. I went to school to do, you know, whatever it is. And at the same time, at that time in 1991, I had just sold my business, so I'd been in the private sector. I started my own business. I sold it, the check cleared. It was great. And then I went to work at New Mexico State University in academia, and academia is another large bureaucracy. But what I found working in academia, as you do in NASA, the brilliance of the people, the passion for the industry, passion for each other. So I saw the similarities between academia and NASA, which is also very much a learning organization. But then, even in 1991, we were beginning to discuss single-stage to orbit. The research was getting to be clear that the shuttle program was not going to be as affordable. It was not going to turn around as frequently as we had hoped. There was already an understanding that the space industry was changing. And for the next, let's say, 10 years, Spaceport America was in the discussion phase. And so now we're at 2001. And political environments also intervene in the direction of large programs like the space program. Bill Clinton now is coming into office. Bill Clinton was not a fan of the space program. And we didn't fare well necessarily under Bill Clinton. And so 2001, it became pretty clear that we had, those of us who were in the space industry who felt very passionate about the direction that the space industry was not going. And more of us came together. We didn't have Twitter and Facebook at the time, so we just hung out. And at conferences, they never had any sessions about commercial space. So the conference, which now is ISPCS, would be out in the parking lot, or would be in breakfast, and 20 of us would get together. And then at night, it was in the bars, and people would just be sitting there eating pretzels and, nursing one beer, trying to figure out, what is it? What about you? What about you? What's going on in your division? And the young people coming into the agency as well, hoping and hungering for a way to scale back what seemed to be, the growth of the space industry without any true real growth in the industry. Just growth in programs and hardware, but no growth in the industry where we were growing a really good space program. Then the X Prize came, 2004. Now, New Mexico State University and the state of New Mexico was involved in the Delta Clipper program, was tested out here. So Bill Glaubitz was the program manager for that. And Bill Glaubitz and I got to meet at that time. That was under Dan Golden's administration, and so fast forward through the 90s. And then the Venture Star program started up. New Mexico bid on that and won that contract, and then NASA canceled the contract. So we had gotten a lot of commitments from the state of New Mexico, which we kept in place as we bid on the X Prize Cup. And so all those concessions for the building of Spaceport America we kept in place. So when we won the X Prize Cup, the X Prize Foundation became the anchor tenant we needed to get to pass one of the milestones to begin to set in motion the releasing of the funding to start building and doing the economic impact statements for Spaceport America, what is now Spaceport America. At the time, it was the Southwest Regional Spaceport. I was on the board, which is now the Spaceport Authority, the Mexico Spaceport Authority, moving that project forward. So all of the frustrations and all of the ups and the downs, and you win Venture Star and they cancel the program, and you get Delta Clipper here and it falls over and burns, and note to self, have more than one test article, you know, all those things as we move forward. Now here we are at X Prize Cup, and Bill Gaubitz and I met when he was here talking about the X Prize Cup. And I said, Bill, I want to do something, and I talked to Peter about this, to get involved in helping with the X Prize Cup. After all, this is New Mexico, and we have a heritage here. And, you know, we talked about all kinds of things we wanted to do. And then Bill and I, 4 years prior, had done a session, and we tried to continue the session at the STAFE, which is the space, it was a Space Nuclear Power Conference done in Albuquerque. And we had done a STAFE session on commercial space. And it was the first Futron study on the demand for space tourism that was presented at our session at STAFE. And so as we moved forward in our discussions, Bill and I, what are we going to do? What do you think we ought to do for the X Prize Cup? And it was going to, you know, it's kind of like this big space carnival. I'm in academia. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in what is behind the scenes that we're going to do to grow this industry. Bill and I came up with this conference together. So I'm a co-founder with Bill Gaubitz. So then Bill was involved with the X Prize Foundation for 2 years, and then he got too busy, and his wife told him he was flunking retirement. So he had to quit it, and so we've just moved forward. So that's how it started.